Welcome into the In the Money podcast for Thursday, October the 11th. Tom Leach along with Jim Goodman, Keeneland's Director of Wagering Development. Don't have a stakes race to talk about for the Thursday card, Jim, so we'll just take a look at the late pick 4 here for the purposes of our podcast. And it's typically challenging. I still couldn't find a single. I don't think I've singled on any pick 4 yet. In any race, so I got close with 2 in the first leg here, but we'll start with you. Where did you land in the first leg of the late pick 4, which is the 7th race on Thursday?
Yeah, the singles that I've come up with have not been successful. I've tried, but I haven't gotten any. First race is a puzzle to me. I mean, I would imagine that you're going to use Bridled Temper and a couple other horses maybe. Bridled Temper is probably my top choice here, the 7 horse. Wanted more distance at Kentucky Downs. Needs a strong pace to close into the pace, though. And this turf course, when we're looking at Thursday, we got a chance of rain. So if it softens up, it's the way it played on opening weekend. If we're on the turf, you got to look at front runners. And I think Bridled Temper, it may be compromised a little bit by that. So for that reason, I'm going deep here. Angel of Mischief, the 4 horse for Norm Cassie, was my second choice. And I really like that Kentucky Downs race that he she broke her maiden by 1 3/4 for Le Peru. Very impressive, and I think she moves forward off of that. That was a good surface down there that day on September the 8th. The 10 horse Perfect Pitch I would use for Ortiz and Jorge Abreu coming out of Kentucky Downs race where she broke her maiden. The 2 horse Heniel coming out of a Kentucky Downs race where almost won an allowance race. It seems like we have a theme here. And then the 8 horse Deadline, another Kentucky Downs horse who actually I saw that race that day, and B.J. Hernandez, she took about 2 steps out of the gate and dumped him. So she was 5-1 that day coming out of that pucker up at Arlington. So I'm going to go 5 deep here. I'm going to use Bridled Temper, but I would forgive the pun, temper that selection if the turf comes up soft.
I'm actually only going 2 deep in here. I leaned on horses with a little more experience, and it wasn't that I thought it was a cinch to be those 2. It was just to kind of keep the ticket affordable. I'm going to go against the horses coming out of mostly maiden wins and go with the ones that have a little more experience. I took Bridled Temper on top, too. I like the race that she had on soft turf last year at Kentucky Downs, thinking this will be, if it stays on the turf, soft. If it comes off, I think she could still be a player because of that 46-2 work here at Keeneland on the main course on October 3rd. And she was 4th in a stake at Arlington, so she has some class. And it seems to be better, as you said, with a little more distance, so she gets it here versus that last race. Deadline, I think, is a real strong contender in here, too. Has run well here before on the turf, and then also troubled in the last 2. You mentioned the one at Kentucky Downs. I think the race before had a little trouble. And then if you go 3 back to the last race that she didn't have trouble, she ran an 81 Beyer, and that would be really strong in here. She's been 2nd in a stakes race. So I like those 2 in the first leg, and I'm just going to take a stand with them to start my pick 4. In the 8th race, I liked My Sixth Sense going into the Iroquois last time, and a little bit of a bad start, and then rushed up and got the lead, and then maybe understandably faded. I like the debut race at Ellis when he set a fast pace. These are 2-year-olds going, and they're going a mile. That's the key thing here for me, that this horse set a fast pace and then pulled away at the end when debuting at 7 furlongs, which is a tough debut distance. So you get speed from the rail in the 1 hole going a mile, and those inside post positions are a big plus at the mile distance here. So I'm going to go with My Sixth Sense to win. Pole setter for Brad Cox, improved in the first time on dirt, and to be 3rd in a grade 3. So I think that one's certainly a serious player. And then I also included the 3 Manny Wah, who ran pretty well in the Iroquois despite coming from the number 9 post. And this horse is bred to be better around 2 turns, I think. Had a sharp work last Sunday. So I'm going to use 1, 4, and 3 in the 8th race. How about you?
I'm going to go a little deeper than that. I like My Sixth Sense as well. I think the Iroquois was a kind of a puzzling race and got out too quick and faded, but the mile cut back after going a mile 16th is going to help him. I also used Meade for Todd Pletcher coming out of the Saratoga Special. Showed a lot of speed, was only a length and a half down at the half-mile pole, and got beat by a tough horse called Call Paul. So They've given me a little time off since August, so I think he's got a shot. I think Pole Setter fits here for Brad Cox coming out of the Iroquois. I like Stage Left a little bit, the 7-horse for Wesley Ward. Didn't run that good a buyer at Monmouth in the Sapling. Only got beat 4 3/4. And we go back here, broke his maiden on a muddy track at Keeneland by 4 lengths in 51-4 last spring. So obviously had a little trouble this summer, but Stage Left, Wesley gets his 2-year-olds ready for here. So I'm going to use him. And then Highest Solitude, the 11-horse for Corey Landry. Don't like the 11 hole, but ran the Kentucky Juvenile Stakes at Kentucky Downs off the maiden win and didn't embarrass himself and ran 4.5 lengths behind Henley's Joy, who almost won the Jessamine here on Sunday. I'm sorry, the Dixiana Bourbon. My stakes races are getting mixed up. The Dixiana Bourbon on Sunday. So that Henley's Joy is going to Breeders' Cup, and High Solitude was only 4 lengths out. So I'm going to go 5 deep here with when we get to the pick 4. Tough race for me.
9th race is another allowance on the turf, non-winners of a race other than. And the more I looked at this, the more I thought this has a great chance to produce an upset. I just didn't like any of the favorites a lot. Didn't have a strong opinion on anybody. So I'm taking a flyer on a horse that's 20-1 on the morning line in the 9th race, and that's Harlan Selection. The last race on September 22nd at Churchill was a 79 buyer, and that was the best that he's ever produced. The previous race, I think, is a little better than it looks because of the post position draw that day. They've got Flavian Pratt named to ride. And then if it does come off the turf, the horse ran well in the slop at Indiana Grand back in July. So I'm going to go with Harlan Selection, but I'll be spreading here. Heaven is Waiting, the 10 for the Maker Ramsey team. Horses run well here at Keeneland. The 9, Fred's Twirlin' Candy, had a pretty decent effort against a better field last time at Kentucky Downs. And then Demolition and Thunder Mesa, the 12 and the 1. I'm going to throw in those 2 as well. So going 5 deep in here. How about you?
Well, I'm running out of money since I went deep in the first 2, so I'm going to stand with 2 horses, 2 of the ones that you mentioned. My top pick would be Fred's Twirling Candy, just because of stakes experience in the Bourbon last year. Even though it was off the turf, they thought enough of this colt to put him in a nice turf stakes off a good maiden win, and didn't like the slot very well. He's come back on the turf and run pretty consistently. They ran in like you said, a much better race at Dueling Grounds, the Dueling Grounds Derby at Kentucky Downs, and had the lead half-mile pole. So Channel Cat won that race and came right back and won, I think, at Churchill. So Fred's Twirling Candy is my pick here. I'm also going to use Demolition, the 12. I'm not going to let Julian Leperoux beat me on another turf race. He knocked me out of 2 pick 4s this weekend, coming from out of the clouds, and I think that this could fit well with that 12 hole. And first time on turf at Kentucky Downs, didn't disgrace himself at a $144,000 allowance race, and I think he fits well for Ian Wilkes. I think that race sets him up well for here. So I'm going to stick with 2, just the 9 and the 12 in the 9th race.
10th race is a $7,500 claimer going a mile and a 16th. Who did you go to there?
Well, again, I'm out of money, so I did go 3 deep, though. I really like this 11-year-old Union Bowman, the 2-horse. You can toss the last race. The reins broke, so that's hard to even. I just drew a line completely through that race at Churchill, and going off his races at Belterra Park and at Indiana Grand, I think this $7,500 claimer is a weak race. So I'm going to use Union Bowman, hoping the 11-year-old in his 91st start gets his 22nd win. That's amazing. Perimeter, spelled Purimeter, for the 5-horse. For a kind of unknown trainer named Kenneth Worth, but also Belterra form. I think he fits here as well. I don't like to take Belterra horses coming to Keeneland, but like I said, this race did not come up very strong, so I think the 5 is my second choice. And then the 10-horse Tonbo, who won a race at Churchill Downs last out, $5,000 claimer, and got claimed out of that from Jason Barkley for Bill Gowan, and moves up here to 7,500, but won that race fairly easily over a couple horses that are in here. This is not a great race to finish up the card. It's a tough race, and I'm 3 deep. I don't feel great about it, but I didn't want to go over $75. So 2, 5, 10 are my picks here.
Yeah, I like the 2 also. The horses had 4 wins this year out of 8 starts, so I like that. And you mentioned the issue that he had last time that you can certainly forgive. I put the 8 on my ticket. The only horse in the race with a win here at Keeneland. So just on that angle, I'm going to throw in a wide open race. I'm going to throw that horse in. And he's back on his best surface, I think, because he has 8 wins on the dirt. And then for the third one, I went to Long on Luck, the 6, off a win last month. So is in good form, and that's certainly a plus in a race like this. And I also added Due to His Charm down on the inside, the one horse. And I left out Tonbo, and probably should have taken him over the one at least, but I'm just going against him because of the post, and I'm at the point where I was trying to keep the ticket down, so I was going to just go 4 deep in the last leg. So on post position, I went with a 1 over the 10, but if you've got the budget, throw the 10 in there as well. But I'm going to do 1, 2, 6, 8 in the last leg. So for me, it's 7, 8 with 1, 3, 4 with 1, 7, 9, 10, 12 with 1, 2, 6, 8. What's your ticket look like?
All right. Mine is 2, 4, 7, 8, 10 with 1, 2, 4, 7, 11 with 9, 12 with 2, 5, 10. I think that's $75.
Good luck, and remember on Thursday, there's a good chance that we're going to get quite a bit of rain on Wednesday night and into Thursday. Last forecast I saw said it may move out during the day on Thursday, so for the races, we could be all right, but you're going to have scratches and maybe races coming off the turf, so just pay extra attention to that. And then we'll be back with another edition of the In the Money podcast for Friday, looking like a great weekend, a little cooler, so a nice fall weekend, but not much rain at all in the forecast for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, so should be a great weekend of racing again for the fall meet at Keeneland. For Jim Goodman, I'm Tom Leach, and this is the In the Money podcast.